Hey guys, DatGetSir here. This video is going to be a discussion on why people change their sensitivity, and also what drives a person to constantly keep changing their sensitivity. As someone who spent plenty of time there myself, I think I can give a good perspective to those that don't understand. We all know that one person or teammate who constantly changes their sensitivity. In fact, maybe you are that person. If this sounds like someone you know, feel free to send this video to them and let me know if it helped you guys. My hope is by the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of the mindset of these players, and also how to deal with it when and if it becomes problematic. Before the video goes any further, I would like to remind everyone that I've recently started streaming every Friday around 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time over on my Twitch channel, which can be found linked below in the video description. Now on to the video. When discussing reasons why people change their sensitivities, there's typically 4 main reasons as to why they do. The first reason is to simply play better in the moment. The people that fall into this category are fixated on their current performance. They're not worried about how they're going to play in a year from now, they're worried about how they're performing now. In other words, they're looking for short-term success and immediate gratification from their sensitivity. An example of someone in this category might be a professional player who's playing in a tournament. To them, all that matters is how well they can compete in that exact moment. So they might be tempted to change their sensitivity to something that will allow them to play at their temporary best. This is a perfectly valid reason for someone to want to change their sensitivity. However, one pitfall that someone might run into while doing this is getting left in the dust on an objectively bad sensitivity. Just because you play better in the moment on a sensitivity doesn't necessarily mean that it will forever be your perfect sensitivity. And you also shouldn't completely ignore the limitations of your sensitivity. If you find yourself constantly struggling with one aspect of your sense, let's say you have really precise aim, but you can't turn around quick enough to fight enemies that come up behind you, as just one example. Even if that sensitivity allows you to play better in that moment, it's still worth at least considering switching it up. However, as I talk about in my How to Find Your Sensitivity video, at some point you need to just draw the line and realize that on every sensitivity, you'll struggle with something. It's a matter of picking one and then working on your weaknesses through training, rather than trying to fix every problem purely by switching sensitivity. You have to make the personal decision. Which areas of your aim do you want to get good naturally through just changing your sensitivity, and which ones are you okay with improving on through practice? It's really just a trade-off when picking your sensitivity, because you're going to have things to work on no matter what. Speaking of trade-offs, that brings us to the second reason that people will often change their sensitivity, and that is to play better in the future. These people are making a sacrifice in their current performance in hopes of achieving a higher skill ceiling later. Even though they may not be as good in the moment, they see the potential that a new sensitivity can bring them, so they suffer through a dip in their performance now in order to see that long-term improvement. In fact, this group of people's main focus is on improvement. So much so that they're willing to change their sensitivity if it means they will theoretically be less limited by it in the future, even if it means they won't be as good right now. It's very typical for people in this group to be trying a higher sensitivity because generally higher sensitivity is less physically limiting. If you have the same accuracy, precision, and smoothness on 2 sensitivities, technically the higher one is better because it allows you more range of motion, and you'll have less interruptions in your movement, like needing to recenter your hand on your mouse pad, for example. So it's very typical for people to spend time in this category in order to force themselves to try to get good with a higher sensitivity. However, even though this category of people are oftentimes trying to adjust to higher sensitivity, that's not always the case. There's also quite a few people trying to get used to lower sensitivity as well. In general, anybody learning how to aim with the part they've never used before, such as someone learning how to arm aim for the first time, can also fit into this category. Again, this category of people includes anyone changing sensitivity for the hopes of being a better player in the future, versus where they see themselves going with their current sensitivity now. It takes a lot of commitment to stay in this category for too long, because oftentimes you don't see results right away, and it can become discouraging when you're losing fights that you would otherwise win if you weren't trying something new. So it's important to stay motivated if you're in this category. Otherwise, you might give up too soon and then never achieve what you set out to do. The third reason why people change their sensitivity is due to injury. This one is pretty self-explanatory, but it's a big enough reason that I felt it shouldn't get overlooked. This category includes anyone who changes their sensitivity because they've either had a serious traumatic injury happen, or anyone who's experienced some sort of repetitive strain injury, carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis, tendinosis, or just general hand and wrist pain. And the list goes on. Even if you try to avoid these, sometimes they happen. It can be a serious inconvenience, but sometimes this reason has to take priority over the other reasons. I'm not a doctor, so I can't comment on what's best for every situation, but if a sensitivity is causing you pain, whether or not the sensitivity is the source of the pain, then it may be worth it to change your sensitivity to something that doesn't cause as much pain for the time being. These things are unfortunate, but they do happen, and it is another reason why some people will change their sensitivity. The fourth and final reason why people change their sensitivity is for fun. Like the last reason, this one is also self-explanatory. Using a new sensitivity for fun can keep you engaged. Sometimes this can be a good thing to do because if you're not engaged, this can make your motivation a lot lower, and regardless of how good or bad you think your sensitivity is, if you're not motivated to practice, then you're not going to improve as quickly. This group of people may be using a sensitivity for a short time just out of pure boredom, or they may keep using it because they simply enjoy it over other sensitivities. They're not as worried about their performance as the other groups of people who are changing their sensitivity, and they're more concerned with enjoying the activity that they're actually doing. One thing that some of these people come to realize is that sometimes it can feel nice just to switch things up, but also sometimes these random experiments actually end up staying permanent because you realize that you actually enjoy using this new sensitivity that you might not have tried had it not been for boredom. So there you have the 4 main reasons why people change their sensitivity. Some would argue that there should be more categories, such as when someone has fear of missing out, or when someone changes their sensitivity just for a short period of time to learn a new aiming technique. However, I think that usually those categories are rooted in these 4 main reasons. And while this list is not the end-all be-all of why people change their sensitivity, I think it covers most of the reasons. Now, as you've probably noticed by now, sometimes these reasons can overlap with each other. It's entirely possible to have more than just one of these reasons at the same time. However, if someone is constantly changing sensitivity all the time, then chances are that these reasons are in conflict with each other. If this sounds like you and it's a problem that you're having, my advice is to know why you're changing your sensitivity in the first place. And be honest with yourself. There's no reason not to. If you have conflicting reasons, then figure out what you prioritize first. All the reasons listed out are valid reasons, and everyone has different goals, so there's no best answer. But if you're completely lost about sensitivity, here's the link to the video I made about it, which I also mentioned earlier. At the end of the day, nobody can tell you if your sensitivity change is justified except for yourself. Changing sensitivity gets a bad rap because it can bring you down a rabbit hole, and if you change your sensitivity too often, it can quickly lead to frustration when you're not performing the way you think you should. Just know it's perfectly fine to change sensitivity as long as you have a clear reason why you're doing it. Knowing the reason is actually more important than getting the sensitivity change right on the first try. Because if you know the goal you're trying to achieve, it will help you prioritize which direction to take your sensitivity, and it will help you think of solutions that may not have been your first thought. If any of this doesn't make sense or you just have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, stop by my Discord, or catch me while I'm streaming live over on my Twitch channel. Links are in the description. If you enjoyed the video or thought it was helpful, hit the like button, and if you're not already, consider subscribing for more content like this. Thanks for watching.